You know that feeling. It's January 1st, you're all fired up to start a new habit, and you're thinking, this is the year. Only to find that by February, it's completely gone. Yeah, you're not alone. But what if the problem isn't you? The book Atomic Habits by James Clear says the problem is your system. And today we're going to break down its powerful and honestly, surprisingly simple approach to making changes that actually stick.
All right, so let's just dive right in with the big question. Why do most of our new habits fail? We've all been there, right? We start out super strong, but then something just fizzles out. Well, Atomic Habits has a really surprising answer. It has almost nothing to do with your willpower. It's all about having the wrong system in place. And that's where we get to the first huge idea in the book. The foundation of a better system isn't some massive, life-altering change. Nope. Instead, it's something so small it's almost invisible. Just a tiny 1% improvement. To really get this, we got to talk about the British cycling team. For nearly 100 years, these guys were, well, they were a joke, totally unremarkable. In their entire history, they'd only won a single gold medal. They'd never even won the Tour de France. They were the very definition of mediocre. But then in 2003, they hired a new performance director, Dave Brailsford. And his strategy was simple, but kind of radical. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. Basically, they took every single thing you could think of and tried to improve it by just 1%. The grip of the tires, 1% better. Massage gels for muscle recovery? Find one that's 1% faster. They even tested pillows to get 1% better sleep. And the results? They were absolutely staggering. The team just dominated the 2008 and 2012 Olympics and went on to win a bunch of Tour de France titles.
Okay, so here's the magic. Those tiny 1% gains don't just add up, they compound. If you get just 1% better each day after a year, you're not 365% better, you're over 37 times better. It's like compound interest for your life. Small, consistent deposits grow into this massive return over time.
But let's be real for a second. This is the exact moment where most of us give up. Because in the beginning, these tiny changes feel, well, they feel pointless. You go to the gym for a week, you look in the mirror, and nothing's different. You study Spanish for a month, and you still can't order a coffee. The book calls this the plateau of latent potential. The secret is realizing you are making progress. You just can't see it yet. The book has this perfect analogy. Think of an ice cube in a cold room. Now you start slowly raising the temperature. 26 degrees? Nothing. 27, 28, 31, still just a block of ice. It feels like all that energy is being wasted. But then you hit 32 degrees and bam! A breakthrough. The work wasn't for nothing, it was just storing up potential, waiting for that one critical moment to unlock.
So this whole idea of delayed results leads us to an even deeper principle in the book, and it's a big one. It says that to make real, lasting progress, we need to stop being so obsessed with our goals. Instead, we need to focus on our systems and, even more importantly, our identity.
So, what's the actual difference? Well, a goal is the result you want, right? Like winning the championship. A system is the process that gets you there, like what you do at practice every single day. Here's the thing. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. The thing that separates them is their system. As the book puts it so perfectly, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
But wait, there's a level that's even deeper than your systems. And this is the real game changer. It's your identity. See, true behavior change is identity change. The goal isn't just to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. The goal isn't just to write a novel, it's to become a writer. When your habits are tangled up with who you believe you are, you're not fighting for change anymore. You're just acting like yourself.
So you're probably thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually do that? Well, it's a super simple two-step process. First, just decide what type of person you want to be. Like, I want to be a healthy person. Simple. Second, you prove it to yourself with small wins. Every single time you choose the salad over the fries, you are casting a vote for that healthy person identity. Each tiny action reinforces who you want to become.
All right, so we've got the why. It's all about building that identity. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the how. The book gives us some really practical tools, and one of the most powerful is something we usually ignore, our environment. It turns out where you are has a massive influence on what you do.
To really understand how powerful your environment is, listen to this absolutely wild statistic from the Vietnam War. A study found that over 15% of U.S. soldiers serving there had become addicted to heroin. Now back home, people were terrified that an entire generation of addicts was about to return.
But here's the part that just blows your mind. When researchers followed up with these soldiers, they found that 95% of them, 95%, simply stopped using when they got back home. Why? Because all the environmental cues were gone. The stress of combat, the easy access, the friends they did it with, all of it vanished. It proves that self-control isn't just about willpower, it's about setting up your environment so you don't need it.
So how do we actually engineer our own environment for success? Well, a fascinating study gives us the perfect clue. Researchers took 3 groups of people who all wanted to build an exercise habit. Group 1 was the control group. They were just told to track their workouts. The second group got all these motivational speeches and videos. But the third group, they were asked to do something very specific. Make a concrete plan for when and where they would exercise.
Now look at these results. It's not even close. In the first 2 groups, the control group and the motivated group, only about 38% of people exercised at least once a week. That's right, the motivation made almost no difference. But in the third group, the one with a specific plan, a whopping 91% of them exercised. The takeaway is crystal clear. A vague goal like, I'm going to exercise more, is pretty much useless. The secret weapon they used is called an implementation intention. And honestly, it's so simple you can use it today. You just fill in the blanks on this formula. I will do behavior at time in location. So, for example, I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room. That clarity just removes all the guesswork and makes it so much more likely that you'll actually follow through.
Okay, final piece of the puzzle. You've built your system, you've designed your environment, but there's one last hurdle, and it's a big one. How do you stay motivated for the long haul? I mean, the beginning of a new habit is always exciting, but what do you do when it just gets, well, boring?
The trick is to operate in what Clear calls the Goldilocks zone. This is that sweet spot where a task isn't so easy that you get bored, but it's not so hard that you get discouraged and quit. Think about the comedian Steve Martin. He didn't start out selling out giant arenas. He spent years and years in tiny clubs, slowly making his jokes just a little bit better, always pushing right on the edge of his ability. It kept him engaged and it kept him improving.
And this leads us to maybe one of the most important insights of the whole book. We always think that failure is the enemy of success. But for long-term habits, the real enemy is boredom. Look, anyone can work hard when they feel motivated, but the professionals, they're the ones who show up and stick to the schedule even when they don't feel like it. They fall in love with the process, not just the prize at the end.
So, as we wrap up this whole breakdown of atomic habits, let's bring it all the way back to that very first idea we talked about. Forget about the massive, overwhelming change for just a second. Instead, ask yourself this one simple question. What is one tiny 1% improvement I can make today that would cast a vote for the person I want to become? Because that, right there, is where it all begins.